Welcome, Irish fans, to this week's edition of the Jack Swarbrick Show. We are coming to you this week from the refurbished home team locker room inside Notre Dame Stadium. On this week's show, we will chat with Walker Jones, Senior Director of Global Sports Marketing for Under Armour. Then Notre Dame Director of Football Performance Matt Balis will join us to talk about the process that led to the strong and fit Irish football team Irish fans are watching this fall. Finally, head football equipment manager Ryan Grooms returns to this space that he is very familiar with to talk about what it takes to handle the equipment needs of the legendary Notre Dame football program. But first, to get things started, here are your hosts, Notre Dame Vice President and Director of Athletics Jack Swarbrick, and Notre Dame football offensive lineman and the leader of Wapu Nation, Sam Bush.
Thanks, Jack. Well, this is a really big show because I just learned how to make the Wapu Nation sign the right way.
There you go.
And this is a big moment in my life.
Yeah, well, you know what? And we're honored that you would throw it.
I'll throw it. I know you still won't let me in the club, but I'll throw it. I'll throw it anytime I can.
That's another discussion.
Speaking of the Wapu Nation, this week my co-host and leader of the Wapu Nation got a whole lot of love from Coach Kelly. Man, he was really highlighting the contributions of Mr. Bush. Tell me a little bit about that.
That was awesome to see. It's awesome for my mom to be able to read my name in a Notre Dame story. And
not a police blotter.
Yeah, exactly. End of the season last year, Coach Kelly had exit interviews and just kind of wanted to get a feel from everyone on the team, what was going on, what was going well, going poorly, what we could change. And I went in and I was really frank with him. I said, Coach, I really think we could use a little more cohesiveness, a little more chemistry in the locker room, because prior to this season we were all split up into position groups, which had been great up to that point, but the way I saw it is I really felt like it would be much more beneficial to our team had we intermingled the guys a little more, so as put an offensive lineman with defensive linemen and wide receivers and linebackers and things of the such, so that while we're able to go around and see our great friends on our position group, we're not just limited to that, and we're getting to know everybody on a really personal, really great level, and we're all becoming not just friends but real family and brothers, and we're able to play for each other.
Well, it certainly had an impact, and thanks to you. All kidding aside, it was. I love that you felt comfortable raising that issue. I love that he heard you, and you helped implement it in a way that's helped the team.
Anything I can do to help.
You demonstrate that over and over again. Another good week, 52-17 over Miami of Ohio, and once again, your brethren on the offensive line had a great game.
They did. They went out there. Coach Kelly's whole attitude last week was going out there and really proving our mental toughness, no matter what the opponent, and going out there. And it didn't matter if we were playing a high school team or if we were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. We were going out there to play a faceless opponent. And that's the mentality that we had all week, going about our business and practicing and preparing to play Miami of Ohio, who we knew was going to put up a great fight. They're coming into our home. We went out there and we took care of business because we had an incredible mentality on Saturday, and it was awesome to see.
Well, you guys did. It was another awesome performance. A big week this week, and then you get to earn a little bye time. If we get past this week, will you take off and go somewhere?
I don't really have too many plans. I probably won't go back home. Southern California is just way too big a turnaround for the 4 days that we'll get off. So, my little brother plays at University of Michigan. Nobody's perfect, but I might have to go and see him, pay him a visit or something, but so we'll see.
Well, I was thinking maybe Justin Timberlake could have you sit in for a show or two if he knows you're on break.
Yeah, exactly. Not quite my forte.
Well, you never know. They're always looking for talent. Well, we have a packed show tonight. I think they're just trying to limit the amount of time you and I get to talk. I'm not sure, but
they don't like our banter anymore.
We have three really great guests that we're going to get to in our show here from the Notre Dame locker room, and each in their own way connects to this locker room.
Absolutely.
And helps us understand the team dynamic a little more. So let's take a break and come back and visit with our guests. We'll be back in a minute.
We represent the greatest university in the world. Let's carry that pride tonight onto this field, and let's play for Notre Dame, and let's play for Our Lady. That's how we're playing today. I don't know what next week holds or the week after or 3 weeks down the road, but tonight, that's how we're playing this football game.
It's caught beautifully. What a play. Touchdown, Notre Dame. The Irish find a way.
Our first guest on this week's Jack Swarbrick Show serves as Senior Director of Global Sports Marketing for Under Armour. He currently oversees Under Armour's marketing efforts for football, baseball, lacrosse, golf, and collegiate sports. Prior to rejoining Under Armour in April of 2016, Jones worked for the CAA Sports Agency in the coaching and football marketing division. Walker also has extensive experience in athletics administration and was a standout 4-year football letterman at the University of Mississippi, where he was named the Rebels' 1997 Defensive MVP and the 1998 SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year. We welcome Walker Jones to this week's edition of the Jack Swarbrick Show.
Walker, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here, Jack. Always a pleasure.
Global marketing, only intergalactic marketing could be more impressive. Tell us what's involved in the scope of your responsibilities at Under Armour.
Well, Jack, it really starts with our partnerships, both with athletes, our teams, leagues, sponsorships, and sports marketing. I'd say we're a little bit of the tip of the spear, trying to go out and forge those relationships and the partnerships that'll help drive the brand and support the different initiatives that the brand has laid out for us. Could be product, stories, all those things that come together to really push the brand forward. And our group goes out and looks for those partnerships, looks for those personalities, events, again, teams, and that really match up with what the stories we're trying to tell. And really it's all the way from the little guys, the youth, all the way up to the guys you see on Sundays, the guys you see playing on the PGA Tour, Tom Brady, Jordan Spieth, Steph Curry, Cam Newton, Bryce Harper, all the way down to those little kids that are aspiring to be those guys one day. And hopefully along that journey of that athlete, we play a role in trying to help make them better and tell a story that's very authentic to our brand.
You mentioned personalities and some of the more prominent ones. You guys have been unbelievably successful at making those choices and picking people that I think are both great representatives of your brand, but at the time you make the decision, maybe aren't very well known and may represent a significant risk, whether it's Jordan Spieth or Curry or, as I watch the baseball playoffs this year, you're very well represented, of course. What goes into the process of making those decisions?
Well, I think, there's a little bit of art in science. I think, and you got to know how to kind of wade through what the data's telling you, what the market's telling you. But you also got to have a little of that, that intuition and trusting your gut. And I think we've done a good job of kind of mixing the data and the information that we can gather along with knowing not only the sports and those cultures, but also knowing our brand and who really can represent the DNA and the culture that Kevin created 20 years ago. And so I think, you take those factors, and then I think you also got to have a great ecosystem of people that you trust. Like in baseball, whether it be scouts, managers, college coaches, people like that know what real talent is and kind of know our brand, and they'll give us a heads up like, hey, you got to watch that person. And so I think our people have done a good job of building that ecosystem and building that trust with the experts in those categories, and then combining it with the knowledge we have of our brand. We've got in our division, we've got a lot of people that have been there a long time and have great tenure at Under Armour, so they understand what an Under Armour athlete looks like and how they act and how they perform. And yes, winning is incredibly important. We all want winners. But you also want guys and girls that really understand and appreciate the partnership. And they understand where we're trying to go with the brand, and they appreciate that, and they see the bigger picture. And so I think you combine all those things, and even then, you said it, Jack, there's still risk. Some guys are going to hit and some guys aren't. But I think we've been able to, get ahead of the curve, so to speak, and get guys before they've had that monumental moment or season, because we've trusted our instincts. We've done a lot of due diligence from a data standpoint, and then we also have a great ecosystem of contacts around those individuals that have given us really good intel. And I think, you pull that all together, you can mitigate some of your risk. But I'll use, like you talked about the Major League Baseball playoffs last night, Aaron Judge.
Right.
Aaron Judge was a guy nobody had ever heard of, but we had one of our employees who works in baseball was really close to a scout and to his high school coach just by a matter of circumstance, and we kind of got tipped off, hey, keep an eye on this kid. He's 6'8", he's a multi-sport athlete, and he's a great kid, and he really would fit well with you guys. And so we made a play on Aaron 3 years ago, not knowing what he could be. And obviously it's turned out well. And, again, that all happened because we had employees that knew who to listen to and were constantly digging and looking for that next great athlete.
Yeah, the good news is if this baseball thing doesn't work out, you can put him on the Warriors and just double down.
Or you can put him for the Giants. You can play DN for the Giants.
You also have a different approach to college team sports. We're fortunate, very fortunate to be a partner of yours, but you've been more selective. It's a smaller cadre of schools that you've chosen to affiliate with. Talk a little bit about that strategy.
Well, for us, it was never about numbers. It was always quality over quantity. And we always felt that we didn't want to be the brand where we just threw, our product and our logo everywhere. And we wanted to really be respectful to the traditions and the histories of those schools. And we wanted to try to match up the limited amount of history we had as a brand with some of these universities that had years and years of tradition and who we could help. Not only they would help make our brand better, but we could help in a small way continue the trajectory of those universities. And so we took that very seriously in the beginning, and we turned down a lot of schools, not because they weren't good or they weren't great people or they were winning, but we just felt like there were other schools that really matched up well with our DNA at that time, and they filled a void for us. And so it was never a numbers game. It was always the quality. And it was always, the DNA match. You sit down and you talk to people, and you talk to an AD, you talk to their coaches, you look at their athletes, and you get that sense, that intangible connection. And so I think we always stayed true to that. And our partnerships have been incredibly loyal. Our universities have been very loyal to us, and we're very loyal to them. And obviously Notre Dame being a part of that. A big part of what we're trying to do. So it'll never be mass. It'll always be the right universities and the right partnerships. And we always say, we have to look at this, in the broader picture of what can we do to not only make our brand better, but make every one of those athletes, in every sport, try to make their college experience just a little bit better, whether it be in what they're wearing and, if we're hiring them post-grad, we really try to make it a 365-degree partnership and go as deep as we can with it.
We're in the locker room today. We're going to be joined a little later by Ryan Grooms, our equipment manager. Talk a little bit, if you will, about, and let's focus on football for a minute, product development. I mean, you're always helping us perform better. It's make us faster, make us lighter, a little better able to recover.
Right.
What's that process like?
Well, I think, and that kind of works with the previous question as well, is when we look at what products we have coming, what stories we want to tell going forward, these partnerships, these university relationships are such a great database and, again, ecosystem for us to develop product, to wear test product. Many times our college partnerships are the first ones to get to try out products that the market hadn't seen yet. And so we like to use these as little training grounds for us to try to tell great stories and try to work on innovation and evolve. And Jack, in anything, if you're staying the same or you're not getting better, then you're getting worse. And so we have to constantly try to evolve our product line, tell different stories, and these universities provide such a great opportunity for us to do that. And Notre Dame is no different, whether it be the brand, piece of telling the Shamrock series and those the cool uniforms and different things that people see on Saturdays. But it's also coming here and bringing our product teams here on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or during the off season and sitting with the student athletes and talking to them about trend and fit and style and performance and what do you think about this? What did you like about this? What did you not like about this? So that feedback allows our engineers, both in footwear, in product, in innovation, sleep study, our connected fitness division. It gives them an insight to the target consumers out there and gives them the ability for us to continue to evolve that product and get incredible feedback that would be really hard to attain in the open marketplace. So I think it's an ongoing year-long process. And yeah, we're here on game days and we're here watching them perform. But we're also here, as you well know, in the off seasons and watching practice and watching them train and trying to pick up, subtle advantages that we can take back to the headquarters and try to make our brand and our product just that much better.
Yeah, I must say our student athletes love that engagement, and they, the soccer guys and gals were very involved in the cleat development.
Absolutely.
And the track and field athletes. So it's a great partnership in that regard. We have several of our former athletes now who are working for you in one capacity or another, and that's another fun dynamic with it. We're, as I said earlier, in a football locker room. It's familiar territory for you. A very highly decorated captain of the Ole Miss football team. I believe you spent some time as a graduate assistant, an ops person.
Yep.
Heck, you've even been on the agency side of football. What do you see as the direction of football going forward? What's, you mentioned youth earlier as a big part of your mission. Mm-hmm. This game that you and I both love faces some real challenges.
Absolutely.
How does Under Armour view that, and how does it participate in it?
Well, Under Armour football will always be core competency at Under Armour. As you well know, that's where Kevin started the company. That's in our DNA. We wouldn't be who we are today without the game of football. And I know personally the game of football has given me so much in my life. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for football. And not just, from the playing stage, just the lessons I learned and that I still apply today. I think football is the greatest teacher of life of all the sports out there. I think you face so many emotions. It's hard, the perseverance, learning to work together as a team, 11 guys in a huddle from all different backgrounds and upbringings all coming together trying to get on the same page and run that perfect play. And half the time that play works, half the time it doesn't. But you still got to get back up and get back in that huddle and go again, and that's life, So I think that's my favorite thing about football is that huddle. Looking in there and looking at guys that you probably wouldn't, your paths wouldn't have crossed otherwise. Right. But that game brings you together, and it's such a great teacher of life. And so, because of those things and because of our history, we're going to always invest in football. And from Kevin on down, it is a focal point for us. And I firmly believe that football, we've got some headwinds right now, but football's safer than it's ever been. The way the game's being officiated, the level of awareness from concussion study, head health challenge that the NFL has really adopted, the way the game's being taught at the youth level. I know I have a 10-year-old son who's playing football and seeing how they're teaching the game now at that young level to try to give those kids a positive experience early on so they'll stay with the game. The equipment, I think, has made the game safer. So, again, I think, we need to tell those stories. Sure, they're risk, and is the game a tough game and a violent game in a lot of aspects? It sure is. But I think the pros far outweigh the cons. Kevin always says, America without football scares me a whole lot more than America with football than without football is a lot scarier to me. Yeah. And I think our country, it's so woven into the fabric of our country. I think that we've got to continue to try to do the things we can to make the game safer. We're trying our part. We're doing a lot with our connected fitness, a lot with head health, with the NFL and GE. that we've been involved in a study with those guys as well. So we're going to do our part to continue to try to make the game as safe as possible, but also tell the stories of the wonderful benefits that it can provide without having to be an All-American or an NFL star.
Right. You guys have produced some great video recently of both Steph Curry in Asia, Tom Brady on a trip to Asia. This morning, when I was getting ready, there was a Premier League game on, and you were on the kit for the teams.
There you go.
Yeah. What does the future look like? Where are the opportunities? Where do you see the greatest growth potential for the company?
Well, I mean, I think international. We're heavily domestic company at this time. Our international growth continues to increase year over year. We know that there's tremendous growth around the globe. Sports is universal, and we think that at this point we have put ourselves in a position where we can now go conquer some of those new frontiers. The Far East is a big example of that. We took Jordan Spieth over there last year in golf. We took Tom Brady over there. We've taken Steph Curry over there. We've really tried to. At one point in our company's journey, the last 6 months, there was a 30-day period where we were opening a new store a day in the Far East. So our retail growth continues to expand. Our footprint is expanding. So I think that's the big frontier for us is how do we show up in these different countries and regions, but not just show up, but be authentic. You can't go in there and assume exactly. Retail's different, marketing's different, the pro sport structure, the youth component of sports is drastically different from country to country, culture to culture. So you really have to go in there with almost a hat in hand approach and bring people into the company that understand that culture and understand where your brand should intercede in that. And then you can slowly start building the brand up. But I think we're being very cautious to enter these new markets in a very respectful way to the current culture that's there. So I see international being incredibly important to us, and we'll continue to open retail opportunities. We'll continue to look for the sponsorships, in whether it be EPL, whether it be with our partners over in Japan, and then the Olympics is huge. Jack, yeah. I think so. The Olympics tell such an international story, and we've had some great Olympians along the way, and we've got the Winter Olympics coming up here this in February. So there'll be a big Under Armour presence in those as well. So I think we'll use the Olympics to tell those stories. And then here, I think we're going to continue to invest in North America and the North America team athlete. We just, again, getting back to football, what we call football in America. The North American team sports it's so who we are. Yeah. And we can't, no matter where we go and how much time we spend overseas, this is going to be our core. And so we're spending a lot of time really trying to shore up the core and continue to tell the story in North America, and then use that brand heat to go conquer these new frontiers. Well, if the first 2 decades is any indication, I know the next 2 are going to be really exciting. If we had more time, I'd share with you my experience in another lifetime of trying to create the Asian Professional Basketball League. Talk about trying to understand the culture and come in the right way. But it's been a delight. I appreciate you being out here, and all of us at Notre Dame appreciate this partnership and all that Under Armour does for us. Thanks very much. Well, Jack, it's an honor. Every time we can come here and spend time with you and your staff, Notre Dame is incredibly important to us, both now and in the future. And I can't tell you how humbled and honored we are to be able to call Notre Dame a partner of ours. And we'll continue to do a great job for you, your staff, and your student athletes. We know you will, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks for being that partner. Thank you. We'll be back in a minute. Circle. He scores! Drops it off to Emmett. Finds the trail. Bjork's got it right.
Our next guest is a native of Chicago who has earned a reputation as one of the top strength and conditioning coaches in college football. Matt Balis was named the Director of Football Performance at Notre Dame in January. Since that time, he has quickly left his mark on the Notre Dame football program to the point the phrase "body by Balis" often pops up in conversations about the physical condition of the 2017 Irish football team. This is Balis' 17th season coaching at the collegiate level, and his career has seen him work for the football programs at Houston, Utah, Florida, Virginia, Mississippi State, and UConn. He is known as an innovator whose strength and conditioning programs produce rapid and long-lasting results. We are pleased to be able to welcome Matt to this week's edition of the Jack Swarbrick Show.
Well, you can't do better than this segment. We got a body by Balis, and we got Balis himself. So this is just perfect. I ought to just get out of the way here. This is your opportunity for revenge.
No.
For all those tough workouts.
Let's not use that word. He's a great guy. We love him.
He knows better than revenge.
Coach, thanks for being with us. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, there is a lot of focus on your impact on our team, deservedly so. But the thing I'd like to start with is the culture and the role that you, by virtue of a lot of things, your personality, but also the NCAA rules, you spend a lot of time with the team, the critical role you play in instilling and building the culture of the program. How do you approach that?
Well, I think it starts with the message from Coach Kelly and mental and physical toughness, being competitive every day, and then with that vision, you have to have details, you have to have accountability, you have to have training toughness. There has to be character built. We say that the weight room is where you see a young person's true character, because a lot of times they don't feel like training all the time or at the level that needs to be trained at to get the optimal results. And so that character demand every day, whether you want to go or not, the accountability that it takes to go as hard as you possibly can, not just for yourself but for your teammates and for our brotherhood and what we're trying to do. I think that if that's the underlying goal, then it's something that happens every day, and that's the expectation. You can never veer from it.
You began in the Wheaton area, am I correct?
Yes.
High school
yes.
in Wheaton. How does one decide this is what they're going to do? How'd you get into this?
Well, I was a competitive power lifter, and I started in high school and did it in college, and loved to train. That was a huge passion. I had a degree in physical education, sports med minor, leadership, always interested in that. But, I ended up teaching and coaching, taught elementary PE, coached high school. And then once I got around the kids and coaching, I fell in love with that. And some of the mentors that I met explained, hey, listen, you can do this in college. And so I was fortunate enough to meet some guys that, allowed me to go in as an intern. And that's what happened. But I knew instantly once I started working with kids and training, the young kids at the high school level, and just from the time I trained, that it was something I loved and wanted to do.
What makes it that for you? What provides that psychic satisfaction?
It's just a feeling to see, when someone does something they didn't think they could do, or the challenge that comes with training the body that they might not feel like doing it, but then once they do it, the feeling that you see them get is incredible. And then you also have this feeling that when it's done, and I'm talking about an off-season program, you see the team and you see the excitement, and you remember all the things that you went through, that the team went through to sacrifice and go through all these things. And I've always believed that in life it's about what happens when you get knocked down, and and how you respond to adversity. And so I think within training is a lot of adversity. Training is a lot of breaking muscle tissue down and challenge and toughness and mindset. And when you see the guys start to build confidence and learn how to fight through that and come back stronger, that's really what it is.
Coach, you've been a couple places throughout the country throughout your tenure. What sets this Notre Dame team apart? What makes us unique?
Well, when I first got here, instantly I saw that I had to bring. I've always been a high energy guy, but the expectations when I saw you guys run into the weight room the first day, and as I was going, I said I can't take a second off like these guys. You guys raised my level. I mean, it was very apparent the type of guys that were here. Very, very high care factor, very type A, very much wanting to win, and do it the right way and do it with great discipline and energy. And so that instantly, it was instant. Now we learned, we kind of learned together the program and the package and and how to do everything. But in terms of just the want, it was instant.
Let me turn that question around on you. How's it different this year from previous years for you?
When we go into the weight room, there just seems to be this unbelievable cohesiveness about the team, and we all go in there with a purpose, and that's something that you've brought and instilled in us since you got here in January. And when we walk through those doors, it's time to grab some metal, push some weight around, and there's no time for funny business. We're getting down to business in there, and we're doing what needs to be done to beat our opponent that week.
Well, and it shows. I think most people could have a sense of what it's like in the off season and probably come pretty close, but I don't think many people understand how it works during the season, right? What's the challenge in a tough 12-game regular season to stay in shape? What are you doing? What's the approach?
Well, first I'll say that we have an incredible staff of strength coaches. You can't do this without a great staff. Coach Ballou, Coach Flint, Coach Grimes, Coach Jones. They're phenomenal, and they allow me to be able to, basically we all create a plan that challenges the body in a way that we can see detailed results if the guys are still, maintaining strength, maintaining explosion, maintaining, their power, their central nervous system twitch. And so when we have, that ability to do that, we can see right away. We get instant feedback, instant results from our elite form, where the guys are. Not to mention the maxes and the reps. We track everything. But in the in season, it is a challenge because the guys are getting so tired from the games and from practice, and everybody's practicing hard. Everyone has a role, and so you have to balance that out with the energy levels that they're expending, and so the volume changes, right? So there's not as much work being done in terms of the actual total volume, but the intensity is still the same. We still want to move the bar fast, velocity. We do a lot of bar speed work. We still do rep work. We still want to keep muscle mass on the guys. And sometimes guys get dinged up, and so then you train around it, and we still want to train the guys, as much as possible so that by middle October, early November, they're still feeling strong. They still feel like when they put their hands on somebody that there's something behind that.
During the amount of time you've been doing this, you've been there for quite a revolution in the science of this, and in the technology of it. How much has it changed?
It's changed a lot. It has. It used to be just lifting weights and running, and that was it. And we always talked about recovery and making sure that you guys get back stronger, and that's still the case. Sleep, number one recovery tool, eating right, hugely important. But now what we have is the ability to really track and measure what the body's doing from a central nervous system standpoint, from a load, a training load standpoint with our GPS systems and our elite form system. Our questionnaires do a great job of letting us know where the guys are at in terms of functionality for practice and how they're doing and how they're feeling. So that's really been the biggest change, and it's been a great change because, the bottom line is you've always got to train hard and work hard. But what this allows you to do is it allows you to work hard and train hard, in a manner that, okay, we are doing what we need to do. And if we see something pop up that's not right, we can address it.
Kind of snowballing off that question, Coach, with this huge revolution and what's going on in the world of sports science and medicine, as a head strength coach yourself, what would you consider one of the biggest beneficial assets that's kind of come about in the last 10, 15 years or so?
I think it's this ability to not overtrain the guys. I think like I said, the old school age of hard work and no pain, no gain, that'll never change. And we pride ourselves on that here at Notre Dame. But at the same time, we get this immediate feedback as if the guy's not still hitting these numbers that he should hit, or we get too high on a load, especially during the end season, we can pull back and we can keep guys healthier. So I think that's the number one asset, is you never want to see your guys get hurt. After all the work that they've done and put in, that's the last thing that anyone ever wants. So that part has been really great.
You mentioned a number of assets that we use as part of the program. Let's delve into one or two of those. Speed form. Tell our audience what that is.
So the training for speed, velocity training, elite form measures how fast the bar is moving. So when a guy, for example, is squatting, he gets under the bar. Even before he gets under the bar, he's going to type in his name, and the sets and reps are going to come up onto the elite form, and they're going to see, okay, I've got to do, let's say 3 reps or 5 reps, and there's a certain number they got to get to and that number is how fast they're moving it, basically meters per second. So the guy goes, he unracks the bar and he goes down, and his job is to move the weight as fast as possible and try to hit that goal. And the great part is that you get immediate feedback. It'll show you if you're hitting your number or not, if you're not hitting it, if it's a record, if it's a top number throughout the day, so the guys can compete in that as well. And so then once the set's complete, the 3 to 5 is complete, they rack it, and then we have instant feedback, and they do as well if they're hitting their goals for the day in the speed world. And it also has the ability to play back as well. There's video on it as well. So if technique is off, we can play it back for them as well.
And how does the GPS tracking help you?
So the GPS is critical, in the in season especially. And what that is that measures our guys' training load throughout the entire practice. So, we'll have roughly 50 of those on the guys, and during practice, Coach Flint does a great job of basically monitoring practice. Like he can tell Coach Kelly, hey, this guy's approaching, a load that, he's getting close to his, that zone where, we might want to think about backing down. And so that's been just extremely vital for us and during practice. And then, of course, at the end, we get results, and Coach Flint will get results of, okay, this is what the training load was this Monday. Here's what it compared to last Monday. Here's what it was this Tuesday. Here's how we compared to Tuesday. And then what we want to see is just a decrease as the week goes on, as they prepare for the opponent. We want to make sure that the student athlete isn't being overtrained, and that GPS load gives us that.
And now probably the most important question that everyone wants to know. Did that voice just come genetically, or did you have to develop it to be a successful strength and conditioning coach?
I actually I used to have a real PE voice. I remember it was many years ago, and I had a voice.
I can't even imagine that.
And I got so excited when I first started coaching. This happened my first college job, University of Houston. I mean, just nonstop, going crazy. And no one ever said, hey, you better slow down or you're going to blow it out. And so that's what happened.
Well, it's perfect, right? You said, you and Mickey Marotti can mimic each other, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today, but more importantly, thanks for the extraordinary impact you're having on this program and the young men in it. You have been a real difference maker for Notre Dame, and we appreciate it.
It's an honor. Thank you.
We'll be back in a minute.
An Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.
We are the University of Notre Dame.
Our next guest is in his 8th year as Notre Dame's head football equipment manager. He is responsible for all facets of the athletic equipment management for the Irish football team, and along with assistant equipment manager Adam Myers, oversees the large staff of 50 student managers who take care of the daily needs of the football program. Prior to coming to Notre Dame, Grooms served in a similar capacity at the University of Minnesota for 2 years, following 5 seasons as a football equipment specialist at the United States Air Force Academy. Ryan also holds the distinction of owning probably the most popular Twitter account of any football equipment manager in the country. At last count, Ryan's @NDFB equipment account has 26,131 followers. Ryan, thanks for letting us use one of your on-campus offices for this week's Jack Swarbrick Show.
All right, thanks for being with us. I'm counting on you activating that account to boost my ratings. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's more than the Wapoo Nation, man. I don't know how that works.
I'm an honorary member of the Wapoo Nation.
Well, let's not get carried away.
We are in one of your homes. And so the first question I want to ask is, how does this renovated space work for you?
It's awesome. You know, it's great to get to call this my office 7 times a year, and obviously more than that as we go over here with practices and just to look around. I mean, it's amazing. The tradition that was kept in place and intact in this room is just amazing, because as the blueprints and the drawings came about and we saw it, and you just kind of question of how classic the other one was, and it was great and we loved it, but at the same time how everything was done so tastefully in here, and the room that was provided to maximize our space and our workspace, especially on a game day, pregame, halftime, everything that the coaches need, everything that's so functional in here, not only just in my area in the equipment room, but out here mainly in the locker room, to give the guys so much space and to utilize everything and to keep that shower intact. I thought was just perfect.
Yeah, but we don't have all the recruits standing out here looking into it anymore.
Right. That's right. We maximized it by putting that glass on there, so it's glassed off for privacy.
Now, you had a big role in the design of this space and things you wanted to achieve. You know, the efficiencies you need to have. What are some of the things you're focused on when we're figuring out how to do this space?
You know, the thing for us is to make sure that the players have space. You know, Coach Balis does a great job of getting the guys stretched out. So we've got an open floor plan for Coach Kelly and the rest of the coaches for their meeting pregame and halftime. When the players leave, you know, that's when our work gets done. When they go to the field, we've got a crew of people who stay in here, get the locker room boards, the dry erase boards, the chairs set up into position meetings there's 3 groups for offense, there's 4 groups for defense, and there's dry erase boards and everything to maximize their space and meeting time to make sure that everything flows perfectly for them, so they just come in and can worry about football and not worry about where's everything else set up, how's it going to be, what's the flow, and we really did a good job with opening up the space, and to keep the same structure that we had and to maximize everything else really worked out well for us.
You know, you were just talking about it, but there have been so many awesome improvements going on around the campus, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. As an equipment manager, what's that like for you, just having access to the best facilities, the best everything? What does that mean for you?
It's crazy. I've got so many keys on my key ring. I don't even know where some of them go, but, you know, I've got pretty 2 important keys, and I get into this gate of the stadium and into the Goog, and it's really awesome. You know, it's humbling at times. You know, I can come in here on Thursday nights. We do our setup with the managers, and when they leave, and I do this, and I really haven't told too many people. I go out and I sit in that stadium for about 10, 15 minutes and just kind of soak it in, because it's time for me. I get to watch. You know, they're doing all the testing with the video board now, which is new, because usually I sat out there in the dark. And but I sit out in the bleachers, and it's kind of amazing, you know, to sit out there and have time to myself that really people would bend over backwards to try and get that access. And it's great that I get to call it my office.
You know, you mentioned that team of people that I have the pleasure of sort of watching convert this when the team heads out for the game, so it's ready for halftime. The place they especially impress me, though, is when we're on the road, because we're making odd spaces work, right? Some visitor locker rooms are better than others. Let's put it that way.
Yep. Coach
Harbaugh commented on that
sure
recently.
Yep.
And you got to make it work anyway. But there's that dimension. But the other thing that always amazes me is Sam and his buddies don't leave the locker room in the cleanest condition possible.
No, I'm good.
Sam carries his weight.
My buddies, though, those guys.
When they leave, you guys have a commitment to leaving the locker room, like visiting the locker room like you found it, right?
I do, and that's something I've just learned over the years, and it's really an easy process, and I think it's appreciated by the host, and we've got a lot of great hosts, and when we go somewhere, my goal, and my staff knows it, and it's communicated to them as soon as they make that travel squad, that we leave it better than the way we found it. And obviously it's not going to be better than the way we found it with some stuff on the floor and everything else. But we make sure to clean up after ourselves, and we're always representing Notre Dame and representing Coach Kelly and representing you as our director. And it's just something that I think kind of goes away to send a signal that hopefully we get the return favor as well. But that's not why we do it. We do it just to make sure that we respect the area, and they've been good hosts to us, and there's no reason not to do it any other way.
You're not merely in charge of how we look. You play a big role in how safe we are. And I know how much time you've spent understanding the helmet technologies and investigating them and learning more about them. Talk a little bit more about that function of your job.
That's the most important thing I do. Everybody thinks the most important thing I do is outfit the guys, and it's far from it. So T-shirts or polos and travel suits, and that's great. But at the end of the day, we want to protect his head and the other 110 heads that are on that team. And it's such a changing game, and the technology's so vast of where it's been with the research that's being done. So there's so much more going into it now as far as fitting of the helmet and making sure that we get that perfect fit. And there's really been a big change in the helmet game here recently in the last couple of years, and we're jumping on board with it. And I think I'm excited about where we're going to go with our future of football helmets and this change that's kind of coming about, and we're really excited to be part of it.
We had an interesting dynamic in the last game with another non-targeting call. That's my editorial aside for the show, where the coating just blew off it. Had you seen that before?
It chips, and Adam, my assistant, Adam Myers, he spends a lot of time during the week of repairing the helmets and covering up, patching the holes, or not the holes, but the gouge marks. But as far as it coming off completely off the side of the shell, Tony took a hit, and it came completely off. It was actually, everybody's okay, so it's easy to say now, but in slow-mo on the TV replay, it looked really cool. You go back to the old days when the helmets were painted and see the gold dust flying off. But for it to fly off like that, it was a heck of a hit, and it hit perfect, and then the face mask scraped it off, and it just kind of deteriorated off the shell. So we switched him out, and he was ready to go.
You look at other helmets, they obviously get chips, and the white underneath is showing. You guys have little gold, I don't even know what you call it, that just you put it over it. But on a mark of that size, what do you do to fix that kind of helmet? Do you send that back?
We send it back, yeah. It's that one we kept. We're going to consider that one a little bit of a souvenir piece.
It's a little relic.
It's sitting in the equipment room over at the Goog right now. But you truly, when we cover it up, if it gets to be that point, offensive linemen, linebackers, running backs, their helmets usually take the majority of the gouge marks, and we'll switch them out. Come next week, we'll do a lot of switches since it's bye week, and we've got time to ship them out, get them reconditioned, and get them, making sure that's part of our. We want to make sure we do look good, so we get it shipped out and make sure it's ready to go.
You for those of us who are around you and work with you, you sort of handle it also flawlessly and from the outside effortlessly. What are the biggest challenges for you? What's sort of your nightmare, right? The things that keep you up at night?
A lot of people ask me if travel is worrisome, and obviously there's always a concern or worry about it, but we've got a pretty good system. Adam and I have been together for 10 years with doing our system. Obviously prior to coming to Notre Dame, we were at Minnesota. I was the equipment manager there, and he was with me, and then he came here, and we were very well trained, I think, as far as checklist, and obviously that's the biggest fear of what if the truck breaks down, And fortunately, we have a plan in place because we're working with a national truck company. That's obviously the biggest fear is what happens if the truck comes up missing. I got a feeling I'm going to have a bad conversation with you and Coach. So that's obviously it's the biggest fear. But, the guys, we've got two great truck drivers, and Bernie and Tony, and they hit the road this afternoon. And that's probably the biggest worry as we go through it. The biggest fear is a helmet fail, I mean, that's these guys, I get to know them so well, and you fear for injury. And football is a game of violence, and they're going to take a hit, and they're going to get injured. And yet you don't want to have any sort of, I don't want to say a connection to it because you do, but you just kind of look after them in that sense of I want everything to work perfectly because we put so much time and effort into it that we want to make sure that we're providing our best service to these guys. Without a football team, I don't have a job, so I'm going to make sure that we're putting forth our full effort to keep them safe.
So something our award-winning listeners may not know is that
our listeners are award-winning?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
The best.
That's great.
When you come in here on game day, every locker has two pieces of double bubble. Where'd that come from?
It truly, everybody, I get this question so many times, and the whole reason for us putting that gum out is to keep you guys away from the window of coming to ask for it. So whether you guys want it or not, we're putting it out, and then you guys can come bother somebody else if you need another piece. So it's to keep you away from us.
Fair enough.
I'm guessing that a lot of players have idiosyncrasies with regard to how they want things or uniform elements. What's the line you have to maintain between accommodating idiosyncrasies and having some uniformity?
The coaches might be worse on that spectrum of anything else, but I'll keep that one to myself.
You just didn't.
We got to talk after this.
But, there's certain players that will, McGlinchey and Nelson and Bivin, those guys, they have to help get dressed by me because the shoulder pads and the jerseys, the everything's tight to get on, as Sam can talk about. But and Andrew Trombetti's in that group. So there's this group that has to have my help. There's a couple guys that have to have Adam's help, and that's probably the biggest thing. Some of these guys are, they always want a different arm sleeve or whatever it may be, and they bring it themselves. And we got to kind of keep it in check so that we're still in uniform and making sure we've got the matching thing going on. But it's pretty simple for our guys. It's a good group that doesn't ask for a whole lot.
If I understood that right, he just said offensive linemen can't dress themselves.
No, that is not. You did not understand that
okay.
right. It's just that we prefer a little TLC and a little help.
Yeah.
It's always nice. It's always appreciated.
High maintenance guys, no matter what.
Well, I remember 2 years ago, Jalen Smith. I remember seeing him walking around. He had 6 wristbands on one arm and then none on the other one.
I don't think you want to get me started on Jalen. If Jalen was here, this would be a much longer story. So he was the king of that. So he liked his certain things, and he definitely always brought them himself. So
the pink shirt.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Well, Ryan, we so much appreciate all you do for our student athletes and keeping them safe, and all you do for this university, representing it so well, and the way we appear, and the way we travel, and the impressions we make wherever we go. So thanks for all you do for us and to help contribute to this football team's success. We're lucky to have you here.
Well, I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me on the show, and it's great to be here. Spend more time with Sam.
I know.
There's nothing better than that.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks so much.
Notre Dame is a place where differences of culture and religion and conviction can coexist with friendship and civility and even love.
We've been entrusted with Notre Dame to pass it on to the next generation in a way that will influence the world for another 175 years.
Well, it was the great show we thought it would be. We didn't have much time at the beginning, and we have even less at the end.
Yeah, really.
The saddest part about this close is you can't play us out. There's been an injury to the cord hand.
I wouldn't call it an injury. It's a minor setback. It's a speed bump. I'll be back next week.
Well, I appreciate that. I just think I'm going to have to visit with Coach Eastan a little bit. We got priorities here.
Let's not do that.
We got to make sure you can play us out. Thanks again for being with me.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next week, and to all our listeners and viewers, thanks for being with us, and go Irish.